We have big news to report on non-citizens being on the voting rolls in Virginia. Judicial Watch, through a records request, uncovered that Virginia removed 6,531 declared non-citizen registrations from the voter rolls over the last 2 years, specifically between June 2024 and June 2026. So this is the detail that we were able to uncover thanks to our records request under Section 8I of the National Voter Registration Act, which requires governments, state and local officials to provide certain information on election roll data. The document is, let's see. So what happened is we got all of the records, including names and addresses. So we can't put out names of addresses of, at least we're not going to. But we were able to compile the number of cancellations that were occurring, as I said, between June 2024 and June 2026. And let me bring up the summary data. Here it is. You see it by county. Chesterfield had 376. Fairfax, which I think is the biggest county in the state of Virginia, or Commonwealth of Virginia, had 1,082 non-citizen cancellations. Prince William County, another big county, suburb of Washington, D.C., 710. Stafford, a little bit further out, 206. Alexandria, just across the river. Alexandria City, 202. And Virginia Beach, 293, and Richmond, 240. So those were I covered pretty much the major population centers in the state and the Commonwealth of Virginia. So how did this come about? So this is my general impression, and I'll get into the specifics. My general impression was that state law required monthly the DMV to send information related to those who, when applying, said that they're not a citizen. So if you applied for a license, you said you're not a citizen, you're supposed to send monthly that information to state election officials, who would then run the traps, confirm the person isn't a citizen, then send it to the registrars, or either or, I'm not sure which, probably both, or to the voter saying, we've got this card, you're on the rolls, you're not a citizen. If you are, please confirm, and if we don't hear from you in 2 weeks, we're going to presume you're not and remove you. Or they would affirm that, yeah, I'm not a citizen, I shouldn't be on the rolls. Well, it's illegal to be on the rolls, or it can be, whether it's a crime or not, depends on the individual circumstances. I'm sure there's always an excuse, right? So they were doing it monthly, and Glenn Youngkin, the Republican governor at the time, he said, why are we doing this once a month? We should be doing it every day. So the left tried to stop that. They were unable to do so. And then the new leadership in Virginia came in, a bunch of left-wing politicians, Democrats. They tried to pull back on this, and they have. So the process that I've talked about is going to be curtailed for the 90 days prior to federal elections. So they had a process. You went to the DMV, you said you're a non-citizen. They checked it daily to make to see if you were on the rolls, and they took you off within 2 weeks. That process is stopped. As of, I think next week, the 90-day becomes 90 days out. We asked for, in June, pursuant to Section 8I of the National Voter Registration Act, all pertinent records in the past 2 years concerning the implementation of programs and activities conducted for the purpose of ensuring the accuracy and currency of the Virginia official list of eligible voters. And then we went into the specifics and said, give us, we basically want to know who you removed and why. Tell us. And they did. So it wasn't just in New Jersey, folks. It's been here. I say here. It's across the river in Virginia. Non-citizens on the voting rolls. And as I said, these are declared non-citizens. According to an April 2026 order/memo written by the Attorney General of Virginia, a leftist, he describes the process. DMV, the Virginia Department of Motor Vehicles, creates a list of all persons who have indicated a non-citizen status when applying for or renewing a license or identification document. In practice, DMV compiles a list of any individuals who checks no in response to the question, "Are you a citizen?" in an online portal. There are reports that this method has resulted in flagging eligible citizens due to inadvertent user error. So how many people do you think are saying that they're a non-citizen when they're actually a citizen? I don't think it's probably a big problem, but the left gets obsessed with pretending there are these problems for basic enforcement on election integrity laws. DMV furnishes this list of self-attested non-citizens to Elect Daily, which is the state elections bureaucracy, then electronically matches the DMV list against the voter registration list and transmits for each match information from the DMV list to the appropriate registrar. After independently confirming that the individual flagged by DMV matches a voter registration record, registrars must send a notice of intent to cancel, allowing the person 14 days to submit a sworn statement confirming citizenship. If that person does not respond and confirm their citizenship, the registrar must cancel their registration. For clarity, in this opinion, that program is called self-attestation removals. So these are confessed non-citizens who are found to have been on the rolls. Canceled. Now, in theory, is it possible a citizen didn't, accidentally said I'm a non-citizen and ignored the warning and they got canceled? Maybe, but they can always just register to vote again. So here you have 6,531 declared non-citizen registrations removed from the voter rolls in Virginia. I think that's a pretty big deal. Now, we don't have the voting activity of these individuals. We may try to get that. I don't know if we can get that. FBI can get it. The Justice Department can get it. The State Attorney General can get it. Because it's a violation of law, as I said, to be registered. 18 U.S.C. 1051F makes it a crime to knowingly make a false claim of U.S. citizenship in order to register to vote or vote in any federal, state, or local election. 18 U.S.C. Section 611 is the direct prohibition of aliens voting in any election for federal office. So if they're on the registration list, it's an indication that either because when you register to vote, you're supposed to say, are you a citizen or not? And if you're not supposed to register. So those non-citizens on the voter registration list, it's fair to conclude, lied, committed a crime. It is disturbing beyond belief that as many as 6,531 non-citizens were registered to vote in Virginia. Judicial Watch is demanding more details, and so should federal law enforcement, especially as Virginia is set to stop removing declared non-citizens from the rolls in the run-up to the November election. These Virginia numbers show that the New Jersey non-citizen voter scandal is just the tip of the iceberg and is part of a national crisis. I'm sure you agree. Why is it Judicial Watch is doing the work here? Huh? We've got this, the President of the United States disclosed information suggesting there were hundreds of thousands of non-citizens on the voting rolls that he can confirm in just a few states. New Jersey admits, oh yeah, you're kind of right. There's 6,000 plus, 400 of them voted. Judicial Watch starts asking more questions. We actually had been asking questions about non-citizens on the rolls. Is there anyone else interested in this? Where's Congress? Of course, the Save America Act continues to be stalled in Congress, which would help eliminate this in a more significant way, because right now it's an attestation, right? You say, I'm a citizen, and there's no check on that. No one wants that. Oh, well, yeah, maybe 10% of the country want that, but no serious person wants that. And of course, in the meantime, we're trying to clean up the rolls in Illinois and in California, millions of names in each state total, or millions of names between the two states, I think. In California, it's nearly 900,000 names at least that need to be cleaned still. And we've already cleaned 6 million names from the rolls. And you can be sure a good number of those are substantial or whatever are non-citizens. Because what happens is you kind of age out. If you don't vote, you're supposed to get a card. Did you vote? What happened to you? Did you vote? Did you move away? Are you dead? I guess you can't answer if you're dead. But if you don't answer and don't vote for the next 2 federal elections, they take your name off. They're supposed to take your name off the list. So you can see how that would cover a non-citizen who had registered to vote, recognized that they were illegally registered, wasn't voting, and therefore would be subject to removals. That would be a category that would be subject to this cleanup process. That's why it's so important to be done. Clean up the names in Virginia. I mean, Governor Youngkin was torn apart by the left for doing this. And God bless Governor Youngkin and the Republicans in the Virginia state government that got this done. Because as soon as the left got in, they started to try to reverse it. You can see this here. They're going to stop the process that I just talked about. Now, in theory, they could remove someone they find out is an illegal alien kind of incidentally or accidentally, but they're not going through this process anymore under a ridiculous reading of the law. Again, I'm not going to give them the time of day in pretending they have a legitimate basis for not removing non-citizens on the rolls or even asking about it. Someone says they're a non-citizen and they're not going to check to see if they're registered to vote for 90 days outside an election after they get a driver's license? Incredible. Even knowing that they catch thousands of people being registered to vote illegally. So this is a crisis. Judicial Watch is taking the lead on election integrity. And big news. I encourage you to go to our website, share this information widely, ask your local and state officials what they're doing to make sure this isn't going on in your state. Call your senators, call your members of Congress about the Save America Act, because this, as I said, would help. I don't know what the status of it now is. I think there's a reconciliation bill of some type that may only require 50 votes. I'm not sure. But if they want to pass it, they'll pass it. 202-224-3121 is the Capitol Hill switchboard. Say, I want to speak to my senator or senators, and they'll say, what state are you from? Well, hopefully you know who your senators are, or you know who your member of Congress is. Maybe you don't. I don't blame you if you do. You don't, given how terrible Congress has been. So a lot to do. Support your Judicial Watch as it exposes these threats to our elections with non-citizens on the rolls who shouldn't be there under law, who are cleaning up the rolls and otherwise taking steps to ensure the integrity of our elections. Go to judicialwatch.org. Support us today. I encourage you to do that. Breaking news this week about the threat or threats to our nation's elections caused by the failure to make sure that non-citizens aren't registering in a substantial way to vote illegally in our elections. The Democratic governor of New Jersey was forced to admit, frankly, by the Department of Homeland Security, that they have at least 6,600 people registered to vote on their rolls who are not citizens. At least 400 of them voted in various elections. Here is the statement posted online, and I guess she had a little video statement as well from the new, I guess she's not new anymore, she's been there a little bit, Governor Mickey Sherrill of New Jersey. Last week I learned that a serious software error in New Jersey's motor vehicle system led to the registration of roughly 6,000 people who indicated that they were not U.S. citizens between June 2023 and June 2024, almost 3 years prior to my taking office. So there you go, trying to avoid any responsibility. These individuals answered no when asked on a keypad whether they were a U.S. citizen when applying for driver's licenses and identification cards. But through no fault of their own, she alleges, the system registered them anyway. This happened under the previous administration. Again, don't blame her, right? And upon learning this information, I immediately ordered my chief counsel to launch an investigation to get to the bottom of what occurred. I also ordered the removal of any residents from our voter rolls who were erroneously added between June 2023 and June 2024. The new MVC administrator that I appointed has begun the process of replacing the vendor responsible for administering the system. According to the governor, our preliminary analysis shows fewer than 400 individuals who are newly registered for the first time because of the error voted. They were registered as Democrats, Republicans, and unaffiliated voters who were scattered across the state. No other details, right? And then she ends by complaining about how President Trump is trying to weaponize election security. This vindicates President Trump. It vindicates everyone else out there who's been concerned about non-citizens voting in our elections, because right now, all they need to do is say I'm not a citizen or I am a citizen, and that's the extent of the check. They don't ask for citizenship verification when someone registers to vote. That's got to change. And now you have the governor of New Jersey admitting that New Jersey has a system in place that essentially put people on the rolls who were getting driver's licenses irrespective of citizenship status. She calls it a glitch. I don't believe her. I don't believe we should believe anything we're hearing here. Indeed, the software company issued a statement. We have the statement here. As our friend John Solomon noted, based in France, IDEMIA works with the New Jersey Motor Vehicle Commission and has for more than 40 years to support the process through which eligible individuals may indicate their interest in registering to vote when applying for or renewing a driver's license or state-issued identification card. IDEMIA's role is to transmit information through the motor vehicle system. The voter registration information is transmitted to the New Jersey Department of State Division of Elections, which is ultimately responsible for verifying eligibility to vote. Information submitted by IDEMIA must still be validated and adjudicated by the Division of Elections. So they're saying it's not our fault. And given what happened here potentially implicates serious crimes at the federal level, I don't know enough about state law. This is a crisis for the people of New Jersey and Americans generally. And what should happen here is, in addition to what already has happened, the Justice Department, at least the Civil Rights Division, has commenced an investigation demanding access to who was registered, who voted, give us the details, and of course the New Jersey governor, because this is the left's tactics now. They don't want to cooperate with this investigation. If we're going to have an FBI, the FBI should be raiding offices throughout the state of New Jersey, in the Capitol certainly, to gain access to this information. Don't send letters, send FBI agents. Get the search warrants, get the subpoenas, do what is necessary and available under criminal law to investigate this in an emergency way. And I don't know why it hasn't been done yet. And of course, you know, the Trump administration was excoriated last week, we've talked about it here, for warning New Jersey and 3 other states they had likely tens of thousands of illegal aliens on the rolls. And this obviously is partly in response to that warning after attacking them for making the warning. So I exposed what was really going on here. In 2018, this is a tweet I issued, New Jersey leftists pushed through a change to the law that automatically registered to vote those applying for driver's licenses or renewing driver's licenses. It doesn't matter. Registering aliens to vote was a foreseeable consequence of this shady system, and a welcome one, I suspect, for the left. And I frankly, and as I note, if President Trump and his DHS hadn't called out what they found in New Jersey directly last week, we wouldn't know about any of this, and these aliens would still be illegally on the rolls and voting. And I find it extremely concerning and enlightening in a negative way that the New Jersey governor is withholding key information about what happened here. She says Republicans and Democrats voted and independents. They were all registered various parties. Well, tell us how they were registered across the parties. What elections did they vote in? She alleges, well, they didn't change the outcome of an election. Well, that's ridiculous. That's not the standard. We know there are hundreds of American citizens who had their votes negated up in New Jersey as a result of this abuse. So when you have these left-wing states automatically register people coming in to get a driver's license, at the same time giving illegals driver's licenses, what do you think is going to happen? This is going to happen. Now, Judicial Watch has launched several Freedom of Information and other government records requests to New Jersey about what went on there, because that's what we do, because we don't trust anyone else to get to the bottom of it. And as I said, what's frustrating to me is that the Justice Department should do more than send letters asking for records. They should be exercising the full authority under the law to conduct an immediate criminal investigation. This is an emergency situation, because their removal or their manipulation of records could be potentially a crime. Who knows? Obstruction of justice. And I think the numbers of illegal aliens, or I should say aliens illegally voting, because this is the issue. You've got tens of millions of non-citizens here in the United States. And it's kind of a numbers game. Or I shouldn't say, it's like a numbers analysis. A certain number of them will register to vote, both in a criminal way, meaning they know they can't register, or accidentally, like happened here. And of those, a certain percentage will vote. And there was a massive study, or important study, done a few years ago. I read about it in the Washington Post. You know, documenting the numbers are significant enough to, because aliens overwhelmingly vote for the left, by the way. So the illegal votes are usually for the left. They do change the outcome of elections, in addition to stealing your vote individually. So I issued this statement. I was, as I said, much less gray then. This is 7 years ago at this point. So I wrote, massive voter fraud. I estimate at least 900,000 aliens illegally voted in midterms. New numbers out of Texas and Pennsylvania suggest foreign nationals illegally voting in massive numbers, voter ID and citizenship verification needed. So I really don't remember what the Texas and Pennsylvania numbers were about, but I still stand by that analysis back then for the 2018 election cycle. And since then, we've had the Biden invasion, so the numbers of non-citizens present in the United States have necessarily, as I note, made things, I think, worse. You can be sure, as I wrote, the number of foreign voters has only increased with the Biden invasion. I guess I should say the number of foreign voters has only increased with the Biden invasion, to get the grammar correct. So you could be sure things are worse. There's material online as I'm doing the video today showing that officials in Washington State were aware of voters who were not citizens being registered to vote at the DMV. So I'm convinced this is the tip of the iceberg. The numbers are enormous, but when it comes right down to it, no non-citizens should be registered to vote and voting. You know, the left says, well, they don't do it in large numbers, it's rare. Well, it's not that rare in New Jersey. 400 voting over years in how many elections? We don't know. 6,600 registered to vote? This lends urgency to the passage or to the necessity for the passage of the Save America Act. The House is trying to push it through again to the Senate. But if you're concerned about this issue of non-citizens voting, you need to get on the horn and let your senators know what you think about it. One way or another. I'm not telling you what to do or think or say. But if you're interested in sharing your views, whatever they are, with your senators, call 202-224-3121. 202-224-3121. If the Senate has its way, they're going to shelve this again and disappear for 6 weeks. That's the plan if things go according to plan. Now they're going to pretend to consider it. But the only way this is going to get fixed, at least nationally, is with congressional intervention. And the president is right to highlight it as a priority and a crisis that needs to be addressed. New Jersey has proven that there is a crisis of non-citizens voting in our elections. And you can't trust these state officials to clean them up and stop it from happening. They've set up systems in place to encourage and invite this type of misconduct, illegality, and destruction of your right, your civil right, to have your vote not be negated by voter fraud, by non-citizen voting. The left is obsessed with this issue. There's a reason they don't want citizenship verification, because it gets in the way of people who are illegally voting for them. And there's no other reason, there's no other legitimate reason. I mean, they pretend it's too hard to figure out if you're a citizen or not and provide the proof. That's just baloney. Everyone knows it's baloney. They don't even support voter ID. Forget about citizenship verification. Voter ID, they're against that too. And of course, Judicial Watch has been addressing this issue time and time again, A, by educating people about what's going on, but B, by going to court to clean up the voter rolls. So the process to clean up the voter rolls is supposed to catch people like this. And if it's not being done, they won't be caught. And I don't mean caught in the sense of necessarily, oh, you caught them in a crime. They get a card saying, hey, you didn't vote, and someone recognizes that, oh, you know why I didn't vote? It's because I'm not a citizen. I shouldn't even be registered. Take my name off the list. I mean, we're suing in California to try to take nearly 900,000 names off the rolls of people who are still on the rolls after years, despite obviously having moved away or died. And you could be sure a number of those are not citizens. So if you clean up voter rolls, it's another way to ensure non-citizens aren't on the rolls and illegally voting. And Judicial Watch has cleaned up at least 6 million names. But as I was on WABC radio earlier this week, and I told them what the number of voters on the rolls who should be cleaned up, how many dirty names are out there nationally, and the hosts were shocked. Because I think the number is 24 million. 24 million names need to be cleaned from the rolls. So there are a few things that need to be done. We need to clean the rolls. We need legislation to ensure only citizens are voted, a system that has teeth behind it. And we need to have voter ID. And as the president rightly insists upon for the Save America Act, significantly restrict mail-in balloting, because it's easier to vote illegally, and knowingly so, if you don't have to show up. All you have to do is like sign something and just get the paperwork in. That makes fraud a lot easier. And as the president highlighted last week, there were schemes afoot by the Chinese, according to intelligence, to provide driver's licenses so that Chinese operatives could vote in our elections. We're not sure what ever happened with the scheme. And of course, on top of that, the Chinese have 220 million voting records, which also places all your votes at risk. So forgive me for thinking this is a crisis. And of course, it's not like I told you so, in the sense that, you agree with me on this. We've been in this fight together for decades. We need better election integrity. Our elections are at risk. Based on what the president has released, based on what New Jersey has disclosed, I have serious concerns about the legitimacy of the midterm elections, at least in the eyes of voters. I mean, does it mean the elections will be stolen? Does it mean people will win who shouldn't have won and people will lose who shouldn't have lost because of voter fraud? No, that doesn't mean that. It means we've got a system in place that people can't trust anymore. And not because they're paranoid, not because they're crazy, but because of evidence like this. It's front and center. I mean, you go into a bank and they don't track your numbers. They don't ask for your ID. They don't ask any questions. They don't give you receipts. You might say, well, how can I trust what this bank is doing with my money? It's the same thing with voting. Your vote should at least be secure as a check deposit, don't you think? Just incredible. And of course, here in our nation's capital, non-citizens vote. And we uncovered a few years ago that they seem to be voting in federal elections. They were supposed to only be voting in local elections because that's, quote, legal. And non-citizens includes illegal aliens. And I kind of rehashed it because it's important to say, look at this. We had this information that was suppressed. 113 foreign nationals voted in the 2024 presidential primary in Washington, D.C. It's a national scandal. It's an insult to every American voter. And depending on the circumstances, may be a violation of federal law. And we uncovered that. Not Congress, who's responsible for that in the end. The fact that there are non-citizens voting in our nation's capital is purely with the sufferance of Congress, because Congress has ultimate oversight. Incredible developments. I know we got a war going on, so people get distracted from that, but of course the media isn't distracted by the war. They just don't want to have this material out there. They tried to suppress the information about the foreign threat to our elections last week, and New Jersey blew it all up for them. And so now they're going to change it into the President Trump weaponizing this issue, when in simple measure, he's simply trying to enforce the law. But I would encourage the administration to be more aggressive. Send the FBI to Trenton now. Big news, Judicial Watch uncovered or forced the release of over 1,000 hours of video from January 6th, video taken by the body cams of D.C. Metropolitan Police officers who responded to the incident that day. It's a massive revelation, massive information that should have been released years ago, and is only being released thanks to Judicial Watch's heavy lifting. Here's a video that quickly summarizes how we got to this space.
Judicial Watch forced the release of over 1,000 hours of D.C. Metropolitan Police body camera footage from the events of January 6, 2021 at the U.S. Capitol. The videos were released as the result of an April 2026 court ruling in a D.C. Freedom of Information Act lawsuit. The D.C. police initially denied an August 2021 request for all body-worn camera footage recorded by police officers responding to the January 6, 2021 events at and around the U.S. Capitol. A D.C. court dealt a major blow to government secrecy by ruling that the D.C. police could not broadly blur and censor the footage, nor could D.C. police charge Judicial Watch $1.5 million to produce the footage for release. Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton had this to say about the release. The release of these previously secret D.C. police January 6 body cam videos are the result of a hard-fought victory for transparency by Judicial Watch. Judicial Watch encourages citizens, law enforcement, Congress, and media to carefully review these videos so they can see more of the truth about January 6. The release of the body cam footage is another in a long list of Judicial Watch victories related to January 6, including a historic settlement for the estate of Ashley Babbitt, an Air Force veteran who was shot and killed by police officer Michael Byrd in the Capitol. Babbitt's death was the only official homicide on January 6th. To view the body cam footage and learn more about Judicial Watch's work uncovering the truth about January 6, visit judicialwatch.org.
So another great victory for transparency and accountability by your friends here at Judicial Watch. And of course, we're only able to achieve these results with your support. And this was another hard-fought, unnecessarily so in my view, battle to get access to this basic information. And, you know, as the report showed earlier, that they essentially wanted to make the videos useless to us. So the DC police said, well, we've got all these videos, but we have to go through them one by one and remove all images or blur out the images of everyone in the videos, more or less. And we're like, well, that's ridiculous. A, you don't need to. And B, if you did, it would make it largely useless to citizens who have a right to know about what happened that day. And so, as we said, they wanted to charge us $1.5 million to make the videos useless to us, who were trying to get them so we could show what happened as opposed to blur what happened. And thankfully, a court here in the District of Columbia, a local court, the judge, she ruled there's no privacy reason to withhold this information or blur it out. And, you know, thankfully, the D.C. government saw the writing on the wall and just released the videos to us. So a great victory, and many of these videos haven't been released before. I think a few of them might have been used in court proceedings with the Biden administration's efforts to jail thousands of people from January 6th. It might have been used a little bit on the Hill during those kangaroo proceedings that Pelosi's January 6th committee was conducting. Here we've got these complete videos, and some of them might be distressing. I mean, there's 1,600 plus of them, over 1,000 hours. So I encourage you and everyone else watching to watch the videos. If there's material in there that's important, find it. Share it on media. Let us know. Send us an email. Send us a note saying, hey, Judicial Watch, this is interesting. This video is particularly interesting, and tell us why you think it's interesting. So if you want to review each of the 1,627 body cam videos made available to Judicial Watch and to the American people as a result, you can go to our website. It's over 1,000 hours of video. Here it is, judicialwatch.org/January 6 bodycam/ or backslash, right? So, you know, you can scroll down. My colleagues will take it from here. You'll see all the videos. We used, I think, the file names they gave us, the government gave us. And so we'll go down. Let's play that video that we looked at earlier, guys. So this video that they're going to find, they were in the, looks like the police were in the infamous tunnel on the west side of the Capitol. And I think, there it is. So you can see back past the shoulder of this police officer. That's the exit to the Capitol steps. So it looks like a very tough and dangerous situation for everyone involved. Let's go find some other videos. So this is what, this is what you have to do. This is what Americans need to do, which is to go and look at the videos and see if they can find anything. Go click on that center one. I think that gives you a good view of the crowd that the police had from, that looks like scaffolding that was put in place for the inauguration. So that's where those officers are. The camera is facing, that's the Capitol on your right. And then to the left is where the crowd was assembling. So under the theory of the Biden administration, everyone standing on the grass out there was in violation of criminal law and could have been prosecuted. I don't know if there's any sound on this one.
No audio on this one.
So there's no audio on this one, but it gives you an idea of what some of the police were doing. How long is this video? So some of the videos run from a few seconds to several hours. This one runs how long? I can't see.
2 hours.
So this one runs 2 hours. Let's scroll up a little bit, see what happens in the video. Okay, and now you can hear some sound. We'll go a little bit more. See, pull past a little bit. That looks like just views of the Capitol. Let's get to some more examples.
We're going way faster on the left than we are
So
on
this
the
is
right.
another evening video, so this is probably
We're already way off the lawn.
that time of year. It's probably 5 o'clock.
Sweeping?
Oh, actually, it tells us.
The stairs, right, and this right here. But look. We've got them pinned in. We've got to open that up.
Am I reading that right?
Look at the shields.
5:35?
Yeah, with the shields, we're holding them in there. We got to push them off.
There's a stairway right there? There's stairs.
So we're going to have to fucking...
They're gonna fall down the stairs.
Yes, they are.
All right, so let's get that corrected. Do what you got to do. Make it happen.
Okay.
There was still a big crowd there at the Capitol late into the evening.
Everybody, I love you. You gotta go to the front lines.
Hey, so who's up front? Arlington County?
You gotta tell them to go slow. I'll go on
So these are
one
videos that kind of show.
Yeah.
Come back to
side.
that.
They go
These are
fast.
videos that kind of show the police interaction with the crowds from a distance. I think the more interesting videos, and this is going to require, Judicial Watch will be taking a look at these videos, obviously, but those of you interested, just delving into the videos more closely to see the individual reactions, the appropriateness of the police behavior, the inappropriateness of the police behavior, and similarly for the demonstrators and the First Amendment protesters who were there, who did what, and was there interaction that was inappropriate on the part of the police. I think we need to find that out or get better information on that, hopefully from these videos. And certainly anyone, the civilian side who was behaving inappropriately, that's going to come forward here. But we've had plenty of information on that side of the equation. And what's interesting about this video release is that there's really no one getting in the way of you figuring out what went on. So you may recall that until really Judicial Watch pushed hard to get access to the January 6 videos that Congress had, there was really no good way for a citizen to find access to all the information about what happened on January 6th, at least when it came to videos and such. And Judicial Watch litigation, we sued and sued and sued to get access to the January 6 videos that Congress had. And thankfully, Speaker Mike Johnson and his team largely released these records in response to not only Judicial Watch's lawsuit, but widespread public demand. Then it turns out there was a whole other category of records, the January 6 videos that the DC police had, that we're now only getting access to. So what's great about both developments that Judicial Watch had a hand in make happening is that prior to the release of the videos by Congress, which Judicial Watch helped force out, and the release of these videos, you had to rely on the left-wing media to figure out what quote was going on Capitol Hill on January 6th. Now, thanks to these disclosures, you won't have to face any roadblock or any editorial decision-making in terms of figuring out what happened on January 6th. You can get access to all these videos on Judicial Watch's website and the other January 6 videos by Congress. Now, is there other material? I'm sure there is, and we've been suing for it. But at least in terms of the videos, thanks to Judicial Watch, you can get access to them. As I said, Judicial Watch isn't slowing down in terms of getting access to information about January 6th and the abusive, lawless response to it by the Biden administration, who used the incident at the Capitol on January 6th as an excuse to jail, not only try to jail President Trump, but all of his political supporters, or most of them, and to target spying operations on members of Congress and other innocents. It's completely, in terms of abuses of power, there have been few comparable in American history to the abuses of power that Biden and his gang engaged in using January 6th as a pretext, including abuses of power targeting me, targeting Judicial Watch, and indirectly you, fellow Judicial Watch supporter, as well. We've got other cases going on out there. We had the big Ashley Babbitt case where we sued on her behalf, on her family's behalf, her estate's behalf, and the Trump administration settled for nearly $5 million, our wrongful death lawsuit. But we also have other pending pieces of litigation. U.S. Department of Justice lawsuit for records on the accelerated January 6 prosecutions after Trump was elected president on in November 2024. The Biden administration, anticipating President-elect Donald Trump's promise to issue pardons, is believed to have accelerated prosecutions in the final month of Biden's term. We got ATF records, for example, in the past, showing that the CIA was present on the grounds of the Capitol on January 6th. They had dog teams and other support personnel there. And we filed a lawsuit for more information on that. We've been getting the runaround. And right now, despite our lawsuit, Congress is yet to release information or emails about the decision-making related to security on January 6th. So there's still hidden emails from Congress about January 6th. Who did what in terms of providing security and ordering security and protection on January 6th? Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, they were the responsible two leaders of Congress who ultimately, under the way things work up there, were responsible for the security failures on January 6th as well. And there's email traffic, we believe, that could reflect on that and other congressional involvement in the security failures, but they're still being held or kept secret from the American people. And so not only has Judicial Watch gotten access to information that's important about January 6th, we are still suing to gain access to more information that's important about January 6th. So a big find, an historic find by your Judicial Watch. And of course, we're only able to do it with your support. Without your support, we can't operate. It's that simple. And if you're not supporting us, I encourage you to do so. If uncovering, without the help of Congress, without the help of the administration, because this wasn't an administration group of records, this was the local DC police, without the help of the media, it was Judicial Watch that said, what about these January 6 body cam videos of the DC police? Give them to us. And we fought and fought and fought and won in court for them. And so, and the only reason we're able to win or be even around to fight is thanks to you. So I encourage you, if you're not already doing so, to support your Judicial Watch. And if you are, thank you. And I encourage you to support us again, because we just gave you more reason to do so. We have crossed another humongous threshold, which is the removal of 6 million dirty names from the voter rolls nationally. It's the result of new numbers. That 6 million number has been reached and arguably surpassed as a result of new information we have from the state of Colorado in response to a settlement and lawsuit and just great work by our lawyers to clean up the voter rolls in Colorado. They informed us that 372,000 inactive voters have been removed from Colorado's voter rolls after Judicial Watch's lawsuit and settlement. It is a remarkable number. It is, in my view, just in some ways the tip of the iceberg in terms of names nationally that need to be released. I'll get into that a little bit later. But now we are over 6 million names removed from the rolls, or about to be removed from the rolls, thanks to Judicial Watch's lawsuits and other legal actions. And we were at 5 million for a bit. Then we bumped up to nearly 6 because Oregon, in response to our lawsuit, announced they were removing, I think, over 800,000 names from the voting rolls. So the 800,000 plus the 372 brings it to 1.2, right? And now we are well over 6 million names having been removed thanks to Judicial Watch's legal work. And how is it this happens? So the National Voter Registration Act is a federal law that requires states to take reasonable steps to maintain the voting list. It means that they got to remove them, the names of people who move away, die, or otherwise are known to be ineligible. And it's a really simple process. It just requires, at least under the litigation that we've initiated, and essentially has been reaffirmed by the Supreme Court of the United States, that if you don't show up to vote, you get a card saying, hey, where are you? You didn't show up to vote this year. And if you don't vote in that, it's for a federal election. And if you don't vote in the next 2 federal elections or otherwise communicate that you still want to be on the registration list, they remove your name, or they're supposed to. So in theory, it could take as long as 5 years plus to have your name removed if you move away without informing someone. And incredibly, the states still fight doing that. The left hates removing names from the voting rolls. At least the activist groups do. But in places like Colorado, a blue state, California, we settled a case. New York, we settled a case. D.C., they removed hundreds of I think 138,000 names. When the lawsuits are brought or the legal actions commence, Judicial Watch is able to get even the bluest of the blue states to begin to comply with the law. And so that's why we are getting, in the case of Colorado, 372,000 names removed. That's why we've gotten, in the case of Oregon, the Secretary of State recently announced after our lawsuit was filed, I think he removed 160,000 names immediately. 600,000 are set to be removed subsequently. In California, LA County removed 1.2 million names thanks to a Judicial Watch lawsuit and settlement. So there is nothing comparable being done at the federal government, by the federal government or the state governments to kind of push this removal process to clean up the rolls as necessary under the MVRA. Now, to the credit of the Trump Justice Department, Harmeet Dillon has started asking for and demanding and been willing to go to court to get the full list of voter registration names so they can look at the names and see if there are illegal aliens on there or names that should be removed. And of course, the left-wing states are fighting her in court. But what's great about what Judicial Watch is doing, and we've been doing it, by the way, since 2000, well, it's at least 15 years, I think, is that we've been initiating private actions to clean up the voter rolls. In fact, we are responsible for the first private actions in federal court to clean up the election rolls. We sued first in Indiana. We sued first in Ohio. We've sued in North Carolina. We've sued in Kentucky. We've sued in, as I said, California, Colorado, Oregon, California, Illinois. Now, as I said, 6 million names have been removed thanks to Judicial Watch's heavy lifting to clean up the voter list. The challenge is there are probably 23, 24 million names that still need to be removed, meaning there are inactive names on the rolls, names that are susceptible to being removed under the law and likely are ineligible to vote. So there's a big backup of dirty names on the voting rolls in various states across the country. And the fact that Judicial Watch has been able to force and require or persuade through a settlement, right? Settlements, when you settle, you are, you agree to disagree, right? And they don't admit wrongdoing, and, we will take credit as much as we're able under the terms of the settlement. But we're happy to come to settlements. That doesn't matter who you are if you're going to clean the names. We're not there to score political points. We are there just to get the law enforced, because dirty names can mean dirty elections. How is it that is the case? Because it is a pool of names from which fraudsters can draw to illegally vote. It's that simple. And by the way, federal law requires the dirty names be cleaned up in a reasonable way. So to me, this is another extraordinary feather in the cap of the Judicial Watch legal team. led by former Justice Department civil rights attorneys. This is civil rights litigation. When we're cleaning up voting rolls, when we're upholding election integrity laws, when we're trying to apply the rule of law to the voting process, that's designed to ensure that your votes are counted and the system is run with integrity. Voting is a core civil right. And the left wants to destroy it in large measure by making it meaningless as a result of fraud, or by keeping people home in many ways as a result of a system that people can't rely on. And by Judicial Watch's moving forward to ensure the system is cleaner, fair, and follows the rule of law, it frankly encourages more people to vote because they, in many ways, will think their vote is more likely to count. And of course, this is only a portion of Judicial Watch's election integrity work. Earlier this year, Judicial Watch obtained one of the most significant Supreme Court decisions on election law in recent memory, which is the affirmation, or reaffirmation in our view, that candidates, of course, can sue to stop an election from being stolen. That's my non-lawyer way of putting it. But essentially, the court said that candidates have standing to challenge illicit ballot counting and other rules that can impinge on their ability to run in a significant way, or in any way at all in large measure. That's called the Boss decision. And we are seemingly about to win another important election law case that we also brought before the Supreme Court, which is the challenge to the counting of ballots that arrive after Election Day. These mail-in ballots get in late, upwards of 7 days, 2 weeks. In Washington State, I think it's 21 days. Under the theory of our opponents, there's really no limit as to when you can get your ballot in late. And the Supreme Court seems sympathetic to the notion that federal election law, which sets federal elections on, what is it, the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November, that means something. It means if your ballot gets in late, that's too late. And it looks like we're going to win that one, knock on wood. And that decision is expected from the Supreme Court, one way or the other, by the end of June, so just in a few months. But is there anyone doing more to protect our elections than Judicial Watch? If so, I'd like to meet them. But in the meantime, if you want elections safe, if you want them secured, if you want them more honest, then you're going to want to support Judicial Watch. Now, does it take the onus off the government to do what we're doing and to try to enforce the rule of law? Of course not. Now, the Trump administration's been with us on a few of these cases. They've for instance, argued with us against this post-election day counting of late ballots just last month. But there's been no comparable work in the history of America by the federal government in terms of cleaning up the rolls. There simply is nothing comparable. Now, the Justice Department under Harmeet Dillon and Trump's leadership is finally getting into that area. But it's Judicial Watch that's removed 6 million names from the voting rolls. It's our work that's done it. And we welcome additional activity by anyone else who wants to get involved, including the feds. But we've got other work to do, and I think the feds always need to do more. And secondly, of course, we've got these other gaping holes in election security where you have too many states refusing to implement voter ID. And this is why you have the SAVE Act that's currently before the Senate, which would mandate a national rule requiring voter ID for federal elections. And would also, I think, I know, it would also require citizenship verification when you're registering to vote. Because right now it's the honor system. You sign a form saying I'm a legal resident, I'm a citizen, and I'm eligible to vote. Now, if you aren't and you sign that form, you technically can go to jail, you can be prosecuted, but that's not enforced. And it's, why are we checking citizenship status. It doesn't make any sense. Why aren't we checking voter ID? Doesn't make any sense. Of course, it does make sense if you want to be able to steal elections. If you want aliens to vote, foreign nationals to vote in elections, it does make perfect sense. And of course, that is the goal of the left, to allow non-citizens to vote in our elections, turn America over to foreigners. And voter ID, who knows who's voting and how often with no voter ID. So I see the left opposed to everything that Judicial Watch is doing, and so much of the litigation I've talked about has been opposed by the radical left. They come into court, Soros fronts for the Democratic Party, which for reasons that I'll let them explain, oppose virtually every election integrity measure. And we've done more than the Republican Party in key measures on most of these issues as well. Now, the Republicans have been more aggressive recently, but again, it's Judicial Watch that's kind of setting the standard. So this is just great news. It's just great news. Now, of course, are we going to stop on this? Are we going to stop suing, stop initiating legal action, stop pushing? No, we are not. In fact, I can guarantee with reasonable certainty, as president of Judicial Watch, there will be more legal action. There will be more lawsuits to clean up voter rolls in the various states or big counties and states that aren't cleaning up the rolls. So more is coming. We've cleaned 6 million, the latest number being 372,000 inactive names in Colorado. Again, that's a lawsuit that began, when did the lawsuit begin in Colorado? Yeah, so we sued in 2020, we settled in 2023, and it takes a while to get the names cleaned off. I know you want it to go faster, I do too, but the law is the law and the process is the process. But I can guarantee you none of it would have taken place without Judicial Watch's litigation. So this kind of shows you that you need a group with the institutional fortitude, expertise, and support from the American people to kind of stick to it with this litigation, because it takes a long time in order to get the fullest and best results in election law litigation. I mean, what happens often is that a lot of groups start talking about, and parties especially, they start talking about election integrity during an election year. Well, you know, it's really hard to kind of get litigation going to protect and ensure better election integrity during an election year. I mean, the time frames that federal lawsuits at least take, or state lawsuits take, it's hard to do. And this is why you need to be doing election law work, election integrity work, 24/7, every year, even in non-election years. So I encourage you to go to Judicial Watch's website, our internet site, and support our work. Because there's no one doing this type of work the way Judicial Watch is. It is an efficient way for you to ensure election integrity rules are being followed. You know, as I said, we've got potentially a Supreme Court decision that could change the laws in 30 states in which they count late ballots that arrive late. And of course, there are always ongoing challenges to election integrity that need to be pursued. And you can be sure we're looking at and considering additional legal actions in new areas of election integrity enforcement that need to be pursued. So there's nothing comparable to Judicial Watch's expertise, demonstrated record of success, and so I respectfully ask for your support. Because I tell you, the other thing that we have that many others don't is that we got you and hundreds of thousands of other patriots who support our work. Because without that support, we wouldn't be able to do this great election work. It's not free. We've got staff we got to hire, our lawyers we got to work with. We've got a big team of lawyers here in Judicial Watch. We often have to hire lawyers on the outside to help us. I mean, I don't probably need to convince you that litigation and investigations and just monitoring even these issues requires resources. And it's because of those resources that you, well, I hope you, but because of Patriots and Judicial Watch supporters give to us, that we're able just to do this great work. So credit goes to our team, but credit goes to you, dear Judicial Watch supporter, who allows this great work to continue. So go to our website, support our work, and celebrate this great news. And yeah, ask your local election officials what they're doing to clean up the rolls, because they're supposed to tell you that under law. You can look it up. So I encourage, and there are a lot of, and thanks to Judicial Watch's leading work on this, a lot of citizens have figured out what to do and have been empowered to pursue cleanups of the voter rolls and get an understanding from their local and state election officials what they're doing under law to ensure the election rolls are clean. So our work not only is direct, right, in terms of impact, but I'm also so proud of, and I think you as supporters should be proud of, that our work is indirect in the sense that it empowers and has educated so many Americans to get involved in election integrity efforts on their own. They don't need Judicial Watch to tell them what to do. You're citizens, you know what to do. It's government. It's not rocket science. So figure out what the rules are, understand how elections are run in your local community and your state, and get active to the degree the law allows. I can't encourage that enough. But if you can't do that, or in addition to, I encourage you to support Judicial Watch, because there's simply nothing comparable. I mean, for example, I almost forgot, we were, we had a team, I think it was an 8-member team. I don't think, maybe I do have the release. Monitoring the elections in Hungary. I mean, Judicial Watch's work is so worldwide respected that we partnered with a group in Hungary to monitor the elections there. Now, typically what goes on in a country like Hungary is the left swarms the area, and if Orban had won, for instance, in Hungary, you could be sure the left would have been screaming from the rafters about the election not being correct. And that's why it's important for Judicial Watch's, for a group like Judicial Watch to participate in that type of process, because the world was watching the Hungarian elections. That we know what an election monitoring operation is supposed to do. The team was led by Bob Popper, again, a former senior official in the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department, who used to monitor elections at the Justice Department. One of his other colleagues, who was a former IG and a former DOJ official, Sean O'Donnell, was there as well, and other Judicial Watch legal teams members and employees who've been involved in these issues before. So we've got a worldwide reach at Judicial Watch in terms of election integrity. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.